So, you're probably thinking about starting your own podcast. Well, if that's you, and that probably is you since you're watching this video, I'm going to give you some advice on how to do that. Just for some context on me, I'm a podcasting coach. I host the Breakthrough Success podcast, Profitable Public Speaking, Ditch the Job, and right now I'm also doing 6 virtual summits that I've hosted in the past that are evergreen, and I have more on the way. So I have done podcasting for a few years. And when it comes to podcasting from a beginner's perspective, from someone who hasn't done it, one of the things I get a lot is podcasting is so much work. And when it comes to like hours and stuff, like it can take like a few hours each week. But I think right away, the first thing you should do is really break down what that work is going to look like, because podcasting can literally be as much or as little work as you want to make it. So a simple format people do is weekly episodes where they interview people. I recommend interviewing people for your show. We'll get more into that later, but for a lot of people, it's weekly. Now, if you do an hour of prep for each episode, and that includes conducting the episode, like recording yourself if you are solo or interviewing the person, that could reasonably take an hour with all the prep and being able to create that episode. Then comes the editing and show notes. What I'm going to recommend here is, especially in the beginning, keep that stuff at a minimum. For my editing, it's really all I do is right now I just add music at the beginning, at the end, and I change things in the episode, you know, if there's like a pause or if there's something that we have to reshoot or something like that. So being very minimal with the editing. I added sponsors later on as my shows grew, but the more minimal you are with the editing and show notes, the easier it's going to be for you to get the episodes out. Because for a lot of people, it's not the doing the interviews and recording yourself that's the challenge. The real challenge is actually editing, writing show notes, and all the post-production stuff that can take the most time, that can really feel like the drag that is holding you down. So you want to be super minimal with that stuff, especially at the beginning. Once you get consistent with podcasting, you can then expand on that. You can then delegate that to someone else. There's just a lot more possibilities once you just get in. So you definitely want to approach this with a minimal mindset when it comes to what you do with the editing and the show notes. And if you have been liking this video so far, definitely make sure you hit that like button to let me know. But when it comes to interviewing people, because I mentioned that earlier, that was something I definitely want to hit on. One of the reasons why I recommend interviewing people is this is where you build relationships. This is where you can get on a lot of speaking stages. This is where you can get a lot of JVs for your affiliate promotions. This is where you can get more traffic to your content because other people are going to be promoting your episodes. So you can do the solo show format, but if you are not interviewing people, you are really missing out on a lot of the benefits of podcasting. So when it comes to interviewing people, just using something like Skype or Zoom to record the interviews is fine. I personally prefer Zoom. In my experience, Zoom is just better with bandwidth, with video. But Skype is also really good for audio and video. It's just that I prefer Zoom. And when it comes to preparing for the interview, the most important thing you need to have is just the bio and the topic. You could have some questions for the guest, but know that you are probably going to go off script. The best interviews are usually the ones that go off script in the conversation. I've done a lot of these interviews, so I don't even bother doing question prep anymore. I just know what topic we're supposed to discuss, and then I let the conversation roll the way that it is supposed to go. So the key thing is just have the bio, have the topic, and you will be fine with the guest prep. Have some questions, especially when you're starting out. But as you do more of these interviews, it's going to be easier for you to go off the topic and have those deeper conversations instead of question 1, question 2, question 3, and running through your list of questions. So the only thing when it comes to interviewing people is you have to have a set time where you and that other person are going to meet. Now, this could be really annoying if you email back and forth, which is why I should use a calendar app like Acuity, which I will be linking below in the description of this video for anyone who's interested. But using something like Acuity allows guests to look to see what days and what times you are available and then schedule something that works for them. I also use Acuity to promote my sponsorship option, which allows me to monetize my show in addition to the relationships I build and different things that lead from all the relationships. But Acuity does also give you the ability to add an add-on, which allows you to potentially make revenue. Another thing you can do with Acuity and a lot of these other forums is ask people questions. So I do ask people, hey, are you interested in podcast coaching? Because that's something that I coach people on. That's something that I talk about on my YouTube channel, and you should probably subscribe if you haven't already. But I do ask people questions in the forum to see if there's a good fit for one of my products, for my YouTube channel, for my services, or anything like that based on how they fill that questionnaire. So Acuity is definitely a really great resource for scheduling interviews, just making that easier. Regarding what times you give people to schedule with you, I recommend just picking 1 or 2 days of the week, because podcasting is a really amazing opportunity. But if you are just starting out, you just want to give only a little bit of time. You don't want to give too much of your time, because that's how people get overwhelmed. And you hear people saying like podcasts, like the ROI isn't there. This is so much time. This is so much work. It's because people feel like they're doing work or podcasting every day. But instead, if you batch the interviews in like 1 to 2 days, which is very doable for a weekly show. For a weekly show, you really just have to interview 4 people each month consistently. Maybe add in a 5th or a 6th person each month just to make sure you have extra content for when you feel like taking a break. But it's not that hard to just pick 1 to 2 days of the week to be able to interview people. I mean, one day, like pick 2 days of the week where you just interview 2 people for maybe 30 to 40 minutes each. That's all you have to do on the interview side. Then it's just minimal editing, minimal show notes, and then publishing your episode. So it can seem like a lot of work, but if you really break it down, it's definitely doable, where maybe if it's just like 2 to 3 hours each week, and that's like high end, you could be doing a weekly podcast. Now, there are other things like promotion that you got to promote the episode to get more exposure. That takes a little more time. That's creating social media posts. That's definitely telling the guests that the episode is live. That is a big thing to do to get more engagement, because you've got the guest sharing the episode to their community now. But when you are just starting out, like these are the things, like it's more important for you to launch your show and just get it out than it is to go really deep into all these different things. So I do cover like podcast promotion strategies, things like that on my channel, but it's more important for you to just get into the flow of creating the episodes, do some promotion, definitely tell the guests that the episode's live so they promote it. And then again, you just build up from there. Maybe you do a little more editing. Like I honestly do barely any more editing. It's really just the music. That's like the only thing I've really, and sponsorships. That's the only thing I've really done differently with the editing. And just keep that work minimal so you're able to focus more on the interviewing side and focus more on mastering the promotion of your episodes so they reach more listeners. Now, one of the big mistakes people make with podcasting is that they just consider podcasting as its own thing. But what you should really be doing with podcasting is think about how it can integrate with the rest of your brand. So when people think about starting a podcast, they think about that new thing, but you could be thinking of it as a way of getting more potential clients for your existing business. Because if you really think about it, if you frame it correctly, you're able to get your avatar on your show. Each interview is like a strategy call that can convert the person into a client with the proper follow-up, with the proper Acuity questionnaire form. So you figure out what it is that people want instead of just guessing what they want or just pushing their services onto people. Like if someone on the forum says, no, I don't want to learn about how to grow my podcast or my YouTube channel, I don't pursue them on that because they're not interested in that area. I'd rather focus more on people like follow up and stuff like that who are interested in those things. I will follow up with someone if, they say they're not interested. It's just that I'm not going to say, hey, I help people with this. Would you be interested in talking about this even more? So the relationship and the conversations we have are a little different based on, what someone says they're interested in and not interested on that forum. So it's not like podcasting, like Breakthrough Success, Ditch the Job, Profitable Public Speak. It's not like they're these like off brand things that I just do for fun. They are all connected to the business that I do, and they allow me to pump out a lot more content for my community. So normally you get on like a strategy call, and if things don't work out, you just chalk it up as a learning experience. But if you have someone on your show and they don't become a client, then you still learn a ton. You still have a really good relationship. You still have new content for your audience. It just makes more sense to use the podcasting format than strictly the strategy call format. So podcasting can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. It could be a way to get a lot more speaking gigs as well, because it establishes you as an expert. You can interview event organizers. There's just so much potential with podcasting if you connect it with your overall brand, instead of treating it as its own entity, which is a common mistake that people make. Now, it's not like I always started out launching a ton of podcasts and doing a ton of interviews. I mean, there was a time where I tried twice to start a podcast and it just did not work. And the reason behind that was I didn't know how to actually publish the podcast. So very briefly, one place you can go to is Libsyn, Libsyn. I actually do have a coupon code Breakthrough that gets you the rest of this and the following month for free. But I'm bringing this up because I didn't know Libsyn, or I didn't know the equivalent of Libsyn for hosting your own podcast. So Libsyn's one option. There are a few out there, but definitely know where you're going to host your podcast. So you use something like Libsyn, you get the podcast up, and then you submit your RSS to like iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and all those other ones. Again, I do have a video on my channel that goes a little bit deeper into this, where I go into like a whole like hour deep dive into all the different things you got to be doing to launch your podcast. But that's pretty much how you get your episodes published in all these places. You just go into one central hub like Libsyn, you publish the episode, and then it gets distributed on all these different platforms. So that's pretty much how it works. I definitely wanted to mention that piece in the video because that was something I didn't know how to do. And that was one of the reasons why I stalled twice to start a podcast. I didn't know. I also didn't do the research, so that part of that's also on me. But as soon as you have that resource and you know what it is, it's definitely so much easier to start your own podcast. Podcasting, I mean, it's just a tremendous opportunity. It's also a tremendous experience. The amount of people who I've been able to meet from podcasting, the opportunities, the ability to impact, make revenue, all those different things. Podcasting has really been there for me. So if you are thinking about starting a podcast, I'm definitely going to say go for it. If you want me to guide you through that process, you can schedule a free strategy call with me, markguberti.com/strategy. See if we're a good fit for coaching. I've helped people launch their podcast, go from idea to podcast launch to being able to interview people, get clients, all these different things. So definitely use that link if you are interested. Also, I do talk about this a lot on my YouTube channel. So if you are a DIYer, I do have videos that basically give you the rundown of different things you could be doing to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast. So that wraps up this video. Dream big, achieve greatness, unlock your potential today.